Hello and welcome to the Evercade Retreat. My name is Gene Joke and today I'm reviewing the Team 17 collection for the Evercade. Team 17 are a British publisher and developer who cut their teeth on the Amiga. It was born out of a merger between 17-bit software and the developer Team 7, hence the name Team 17. Unlike many developers and publishers of the era for the Amiga, Team 17 are still going. Like all companies, they've had their ups and downs, but that's not what this video is about, so I'm not going to go into it. You can find that information online in various places. I do recommend a video by Kim Justice, the Games and History of Team 17, or whatever it's called. I'll put a link in the description below. My personal history of Team 17, well, it comes from the Amiga as you might expect, and I played many of these games when they were first released. I'll also add that it was the announcement of Amiga games coming to the Evercade was one of the things that influenced my decision to jump on the Evercade ecosystem, and Team 17 being announced as the first Amiga collection to hit the Evercade, well, it was music to my ears. Suffice to say there is a healthy dose of nostalgia here for me. But anyway, with that in mind, let's go on with ranking the games and giving my individual reviews of them. As usual, I'll rank them from worst to best, or least favourite to favourite, however you want to call it. It ultimately amounts to the same thing after all.
Number 10
is Full Contact. This was Team 17's first game. It's a fighting game, but pre-Street Fighter 2, it's more in the mould of Yaya Kung Fu. It also has mini games between rounds where you essentially waggle your joystick and you try and beat a power meter. And these can be rather challenging on the Evercade D-pad. The game itself has some nice graphics and some excellent presentation. The combat is fast, and while it's no IK+, I think it was a pretty good fighter for the era. But that's quite a significant caveat. Fighting games came a long way very soon after. So while it's interesting to have on this collection and you can have fun with it, it doesn't really hold up all that well, especially with the difficulties with the bonus stages on the D-pad. So all in all, not a bad game, just falls short in a few ways, and like I said, it's of its era and it doesn't hold up all that well.
Number 9
is Body Blows. Coming out a few years after Full Contact and after Street Fighter 2 had left a significant impact on the gaming industry and the fighting game genre, this was Team 17's answer to Street Fighter 2. I can't honestly remember if it came out before or after the Amiga's abysmal port of Street Fighter 2, but in common with that, one of the difficulties the Amiga had is it used one-button joysticks, and Street Fighter 2, as I'm sure everyone knows, has 6 buttons for fighting. Adapting such a control system to a one-button joystick isn't that easy. Instead, Body Blows takes a slightly different approach to special moves and everything, and it makes a noble attempt I suppose, but ultimately it does fall short in terms of gameplay. It lacks the fluidity of games like Street Fighter 2 and the myriad of fighting games that followed. Body Blows was well regarded at the time and I think it was a valiant effort. However, I don't think it really holds up today. Much like Full Contact, you can have fun with it. There is a reasonable game here if you can get used to the control system, and that definitely takes some getting used to after years of playing fighting games that were inspired by Street Fighter 2. It also really doesn't help that for some bizarre reason they decided to map a reset button to one of the face buttons. Press Y and you'll restart the game. Why, Blaze? Why? It's also worth noting this is the AGA version of the game, which means it has higher res backgrounds and more detailed backgrounds than the Amiga A500 version that came out initially. There may be some other differences, but I can't recall them off the top of my head. However, as far as I know, the main sprites and the gameplay itself do remain pretty much intact to that version. The characters in the game are very generic Street Fighter 2 knockoffs and what have you, that they don't really stand out. Well, some do, but probably for the wrong reasons. Again, much like Full Contact, there is a pretty good game here for its era, but it doesn't really hold up all that well. I know many people will bounce off this.
Number 8
is Kingpin Arcade Sports Bowling. It's a 10-pin bowling game with a few options, multiplayer modes, and yeah, it's absolutely fine. It was a budget release at the time. It wasn't overly impressive graphically, but it does a nice enough job. Really, there's nothing much to complain about here. The gameplay is fairly simplistic and straightforward, but again, it does the job. It's perfectly functional and it is enjoyable in its own way. Honestly, I can't fault it for what it is, but I have played better bowling games. Although I would argue it probably is the best bowling game on the Evercade.
Number 7
is Arcade Pool. Much like Bowling before it, this is a very competent pool game for the Evercade, or for the Amiga, but now on the Evercade. There's a myriad of different options. The presentation is exactly what you'd expect for this sort of game. It's not flashy or impressive in any particular way, but it is a very competent pool simulator, and the mouse controls have been adapted to the Evercade controller pretty well. I know some disagree with that statement though. The AI opponents can be extremely challenging to beat, which is probably my biggest problem with this game, because I kind of suck at it. This is a type of game that I'm not really that into. I do have fun with them from time to time, but this I do find a bit too challenging for my meagre abilities, which is probably why it's ranked here rather than higher up. Again, it's my list, my preferences, it ends up here. But again, it's an absolutely fine game and quite impressive in the range of options it has.
Number 6.
Is ATR All-Terrain Racing. This is a top-down racing game in the mould of Super Sprint and the like, and it's a good one, but it is very challenging. You can upgrade your car, get weapons, there's obstacles on the track, all the things you'd really expect in a game of this type. It is a good example of it. There are a few gripes with that. I do find you maybe can't see as much as the track as you might ideally like. There is a definite and quite steep learning curve to it. I know many people will bounce off this initially because they'll find it too challenging to begin with, but persevere and you'll find a fun game here. As with most Team 17 games, it has good graphics and music, solid presentation. It really comes down to whether you enjoy this sort of game at the end of the day.
Number 5.
Is Alien Breed 2 The Horror Continues. Quite obviously this is the sequel to Alien Breed, which obviously will be ranking higher up in this list, so I haven't spoken about it yet. It is obviously a top-down shoot-'em-up inspired by the Aliens movies. This is a fairly typical sequel of the era. It's largely more of the same with a few more bells and whistles and increased difficulty. Unfortunately, I think they increased the difficulty too much, which is why it ranks lowest of all the Alien Breed games on the Evercade. There are different characters to select and a few other bells and whistles as I mentioned. The graphics are improved and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, I said, because the difficulty and some design things, it's just not as much fun to play. To be perfectly honest, I found this one very difficult to get into, and at one point it probably would have been my lowest ranked game on this collection because it was frustrating me so much. But as you get further into the game, it actually gets a bit easier, which is a bit backwards really. I suspect many people would rank this game lower. It's my kind of jam, more so than the other games that the last couple of games I've ranked really. So yeah, it ends up here, but it's a very flawed game because of the difficulty and just a number of annoyances. But there are an abundance of cheat codes and things you can put in. They're worth looking up. They'll make this game a bit more bearable and more fun for you and easier to get into.
Number 4.
Is Alien Breed Special Edition. This was the budget re-release of the original Alien Breed with a few minor tweaks. Off the top of my head I can't really recall what they are, so I'm sure you can look it up somewhere if you want. Anyway, as the title suggests, and as I mentioned in my comments about Alien Breed 2, it's a top-down shoot-'em-up inspired by the Aliens movies. And in some ways shoot-'em-up might be the wrong term. It's an action-adventure really. Yes, you do shoot aliens and it's a big part of the game, but this isn't like Gauntlet. You're not running around shooting them just trying to get to an exit. Well, in some ways you are. There's often other objectives on levels. Much like Gauntlet, you get keys to open doors, well, key cards I suppose, because it's a sci-fi setting, but in gameplay terms it's a key. There's computer terminals scattered around where you can buy extra ammo, keys and weapons. One of the frustrations of this game is it's entirely possible to softlock yourself by running out of keys or ammo. Also, the way the aliens respawn can be very frustrating if you're going back and forth trying to find where to go, and you'll get through that much more ammo. This is a game where you kind of need the various cheat codes it has. You can find these online easy enough. It is a very tough and unforgiving game, and playing it like an arcade shooter will get you nowhere, and I suspect that's why many people don't really find this game that much fun. But if you play it as a sci-fi action thriller, it's a different experience. If you treat each level like an alien movie, well, you'll have more fun with it. Really getting into the tension, the atmosphere of the environment, exploring and things, it becomes a lot of fun. Most levels essentially boil down to finding or achieving your objective, destroying something, and escaping to the lift to the next level before the whole level explodes. As I said, each of them play out a bit like a miniature alien movie. I know part of the reason I rank it this highly is partly due to my nostalgia for the game, and to be perfectly honest, when I first started playing this on the collection and I hadn't played it since the early 90s, I did find myself quite frustrated, and it took me quite a while to get into it again, to get past that barrier of frustration. But my love of the alien movies and this sort of action, I suppose it just eventually fell into place again, and I found myself really enjoying it. But there's no getting around the fact that it is difficult and flawed, just not as difficult as Alien Breed 2, obviously. And I do recommend checking out those cheat codes because they will really help you enjoy this game if you really can't be bothered to persevere with it.
Number 3.
is Project X Special Edition. This is a horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up, and it's one I played back in the day and absolutely sucked at. But I played the original edition, not the special edition. This special edition is apparently made easier, but it is still a very challenging game. The game opens with a fantastic sort of EDM type theme. It's a shame this isn't carried through into the game itself. It's just sound effects only, I'm afraid. The game itself is fairly straightforward shoot 'em up stuff, and it doesn't really compare to, say, your tower plan shoot 'em ups or R-Type, but it is one of the better shoot 'em ups from the Amiga library, at least of those that weren't arcade ports anyway. Graphically it's decent, although it does look very much like a demo scene game, if that makes sense. If you're familiar with Amiga, you'll probably understand the reference. If not, I expect you'll appreciate what it is. There's some nice backgrounds, even if they are a little bit sparse. You've got a range of power-ups which you can use, which can be quite interesting how the power-up system works. Collect various different things. As you build up enough, you can activate a power-up. There are some impressive looking bosses, some of which can be absolute bullet sponges, and some that require very accurate and precise movements to beat. As I said, this is a very challenging game, but you can either get good or abuse those save states to get through it. I'd imagine people without any sort of Amiga nostalgia might find this game a bit less impressive and rank it lower. Well, maybe they won't, but yeah, pure nostalgia pick here. I really enjoyed it, but I know it doesn't compare to the best the genre has to offer on the Evercade.
Number 2.
Is Alien Breed Tower Assault. This is essentially Alien Breed 3, and it is much like the other two. However, this is much less linear. Not set as an open world, but the way the levels and the complex that you're in is laid out, it plays semi-open world to a degree, I suppose. There are different entrances to the complex and routes you can take through the game, which can greatly affect the difficulty you'll experience. It also adds some replay value to the game. The game also has various improvements over the others. Although it is still a challenging game, it feels more fair and, well, like it's for better reasons rather than cheap design. This is easily the best of the original Alien Breed trilogy.
Number 1.
Is Quack. And to be perfectly honest, I'm surprised at finding myself putting this at the top spot, but I'll get into explaining why shortly. But first of all, the game itself, you play a duck in a single screen platformer. You run around throwing eggs, taking out your enemies, collecting various potions, keys and things to, well, collect everything on the level and advance to the next one. Every so many levels there is a boss fight, and there is a whole host of levels. I'm not even sure how many levels there are because, well, I didn't complete this game because it gets to a point where it becomes so difficult that it stops being fun, which sounds like a negative, but if you play it as a game to beat it, it does eventually become repetitive and stop being fun. But if you play it more like an arcade game as a score chaser to get as far in as you can, then it is enjoyable, very enjoyable. You get bonuses for beating a level without taking out any enemies. There's various other bonuses and score multipliers you can get. It's taking that perspective on the game which makes it fun. Rather than continuing and that, just play for one series of lives. When they're gone, you're done. Get on the high score table, improve your score. You'll get deeper into the game as you, well, get better at it naturally, but you'll find yourself compelled to keep coming back to it to improve your score, to get the pacifist bonus, or just to get some better RNG, because there are some randomised elements and these can really affect your score. Not say it's so random that it feels unfair. You can make the best of a good run or a bad run, but some things that pop up randomly can really make your life easier or just not say greatly increase your score. This isn't a game I played back in the day. I was aware of it, I'd heard of it, it's one I wanted to play, I just never got around to playing it. It is a cute single screen platform with some jolly music, nice presentation. It's quite a simple game, but yeah, it does become very compelling. I mentioned about the sheer volume of levels. I think I've gone through about 80 or 90 levels. But at a certain point you start getting a lights out type effect, and after a certain stage the lights will go off and you have to flip a switch or something to, well, turn them back on, and that makes things very difficult. And it was a few levels into that where I stopped playing or trying to get through it. I'm not even sure how many levels the game has. Maybe it's infinite, who knows, maybe it leaves. I have absolutely no idea. But with those lights out stages, it became so difficult that even using save states I couldn't really make that much progress, and it just became too frustrating to be enjoyable, so I stopped trying that. But treating it as an arcade score chaser, like I mentioned, I have had a lot of fun with this, and it is my most played game on this collection. I suppose because it's the most replayable. I'm sure many would disagree, but hey, it's my list.
Overall thoughts.
As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is very much a nostalgic heart for me. There's only one game that I'd never played before getting this collection, which was Quack, but I can safely say a large amount of my enjoyment did come from the whole nostalgia for the Amiga in general and these games, even when I didn't hit the mark. I know many aren't as impressed with this collection as I am, but I know there's many others who feel exactly the same way as I do. Well, maybe their preferences of games are different, but still, Amiga nostalgia and Team 17 is a potent combination. And I know there's many others like myself who are hoping for a Team 17 Collection 2 to come out eventually. Who knows, maybe it'll happen. The cart has a reasonable amount of variety, given fighting games, shooting games, platform games, racing games, sports stuff. It's got a bit of variety, as I said. But I do think for most people who don't have nostalgia for these games or the Amiga, there won't be anything that will completely wow them. Unless, of course, they are willing to put the effort in to get familiar with these games and give them the time of day. Because the number of them will very much reward that perseverance. To score the collection, I would have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Although personally my nostalgia would probably knock it up to an 8.5. I think as a broad score, 7.5 is decent. Anyway, as always, I'll leave you out with a silly song based on one of the games, and I'll see you in the next video.
Steel walls whisper, the lights flicker low. Echoes of footsteps, where did my squad go? Data screens flashing, the warning's all red. The breed is awake and it's hunting my head. No time for fear, just a loaded gun. Darkness is rising, there's nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide from this alien tide. I fight the urge to run as they surge. Teeth and claws ready to shred. They won't stop until I'm dead. Until I'm dead. Ocean detectors, they scream in the night. One click too late and I've lost the fight. Echoing signals, a voice through the haze. A lone survivor in this twisted maze. No time for fear, just a loaded gun. Darkness is rising, there's nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide from this alien tide. I fight the urge to run as they surge. Teeth and claws ready to shred. They won't stop until I'm dead. Until I'm dead. Dead. My last magazine, my hope running thin. I was meant to give in, to let the aliens plant their seed, to let the aliens breed. Nowhere to hide from this alien tide. I fight the urge to run as they surge.